Hi, Tina.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Let
All
me move
right.
this light here.
So,
See better.
how are you feeling? All right?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you? How's
Good,
everyone?
good.
It's good to see lots of people joining us today.
Yeah. We'll wait a few more minutes to see if there's some more joining us, and then we can
Yeah, sure.
start.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What time is it? Okay, maybe about 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Just try and get this.
So, were you at home today, or?
Yeah, I'm at home today.
Yeah, same. It's not much to do at home, though.
Yeah, I just keep yourself busy.
I know. That's what we're trying to do. Okay. Let's see. I'll just
Catch up on
message.
my work and admin.
Yeah, now I'm just doing bits and pieces for my husband. So, okay, let's see. Let me just let people know we're online. Where'd it go? Okay, all right. Okay, I think we can start now. So, Tina, thanks for joining us today. All right. Okay, maybe we can start off with a quick introduction
Yep.
on basically what you do and everything.
Yep. So I have been living in Singapore for about 5 years now. Moved here in 2017, and then started. So my husband and I started our IVF fertility journey about a year and a half later. And during our treatment, so I'll talk a bit more about my journey later on. But during our
Hmm.
treatment, I decided I wanted to retrain. So I originally was working in digital marketing, but going
Okay.
through the journey and the fertility journey myself, I noticed there was a big gap in the mental kind of space and well-being, and someone looking after your kind of emotional feelings and how you're coping with your emotions during the fertility journey. There was a bit of a gap there, and so I retrained as a fertility coach, because I really wanted to help other women and couples that were going through the same journey, but not feeling like they were getting the support they needed from an emotional perspective.
Okay. Where did you train? In Singapore or how did
Yes,
you train?
I trained in Singapore. So
Okay.
I decided I wanted to be a fertility coach. Actually, I had my own coaching to help me
Okay.
sort of decide and understand what it was that I wanted to do and how I can help people in a similar situation. And then I basically did an NLP course, so that's neuro linguistic programming. So I did the
Okay.
practitioner course and the master practitioner. So that's what I did to retrain to be a coach, and I'm currently just finishing off my International Coaching Institute accreditation. So that's kind of like the final element.
And how long is the coaching? I mean, how long did the coaching take or will it take?
So to become an NLP master practitioner, you need to
Hmm.
do over 300 hours. So most of that is actually face-to-face coaching and learning about the NLP techniques and tools and how to coach people. And that's all face-to-face classes. So none of it is online. It's all done. It's all practical.
Wow, okay. All right. I think
I'm good.
a lot of people have a confusion on the difference between fertility coaching and
Yeah,
fertility counseling. Yeah.
yeah.
Would you be able to explain the difference?
Yeah, sure. So it's a question that I get asked quite frequently, actually. So the clear
Yeah.
difference between coaching and counseling. So counseling is about looking back at the past, right? So looking at events that have traumatized you or have left you feeling, quite down and quite depressed. And it's about unpacking those feelings and those emotions and those triggers for you and trying to fix those for you so you can move forward. Okay, so it's about looking back at your past and past events that have
Hmm.
trauma. Coaching is about goal setting and outcome setting looking forward. So it's about, okay, how can we empower you and enable you to be able to manage your emotions and your feelings during the journey going forwards? How would you like to, so if you're in a state of anxiety or
Hmm.
depression, what state would you like to be in and how can we get you there? So how can we better equip you to manage the journey going forward. So it's about looking forwards and looking ahead. So that's really the main difference between counselling and coaching. So one is kind of looking backwards and one's looking forwards and trying to help you and propel you to move forwards. Does that make
Interesting.
sense?
So did you actually go to both before you decided to be a coach, or did you basically, I mean, go to a coach and then decide, oh, that's what I want to do?
Yeah, I went to coach and decided that's what I wanted to do. So for me,
Interesting.
the angle was always coaching and about looking forwards and helping women and couples to manage their emotions and the way they approach the fertility journey going forwards.
Okay. Would you mind maybe sharing a bit about your, because I know you, but I mean, to share with everyone, what's your journey and how you got here today?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not going to go into all the detail because anyone that's
Yeah.
interested in the detail of the journey, because as you know, there's so many things that you go through. My detailed sort of stories on my blog for those that are interested to read it. But I'll do a summary and in a nutshell. So we were actually trying naturally. Hadn't been trying for too long with myself and my husband. Maybe like 4 or 5 months actually. But then we just decided, while we're in Singapore, as part of our medical health check, why don't we just get fertility test done just to be sure?
Yeah.
And part of the reason for doing that was I was sort of nearing my late 30s and my husband was too. So we didn't have an awful lot of time on our hands. So we wanted to make sure with the time that we have, we're making sure we're doing all the right things to help us along. So we both got tested,
Hmm.
and not even thinking anything would be wrong. We were quite optimistic.
Yeah.
The day we got results back, so my husband called me. We'd already booked an appointment to see a fertility doctor. And when we got there, she read his results and basically just, quite bluntly said, I'm sorry, guys, your chances of conceiving naturally are pretty much zero. So
Wow.
you have to
Okay.
start IVF treatment pretty much straight away if you want to have a children or start a family. And we were
Shocker. Yeah.
shocked.
Yeah.
I would say very shocked, and we were very naive because
Yeah.
although I know people that have been through IVF, you just don't know what's coming ahead of you, and you always in your mind think, okay, 1 or 2 cycles and we'll get pregnant.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work like that, unfortunately. So then we obviously entered the IVF journey. As you know, it's a roller coaster journey for a lot of couples, and we did 4 cycles. Most of our treatment was done here, but we did a couple of pickups in Malaysia because we wanted to do
The
testing on our
PG.
embryo. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, PG testing. And then the other 2 cycles were here. So out of the 4 cycles, only the fourth cycle worked. So we actually got embryos. We got 6 embryos from the fourth cycle. So all the other
So the
cycles.
previous 3 cycles did nothing?
That's right. Yeah. So as part
Wow.
of because our problem was male infertility, at the same time that I was getting my egg collection, my husband had to do a micro teaser operation too to
Wow.
try
Mm.
and collect some of the best sperms.
Yeah.
So we had 4 cycles, and then we had 5 um, frozen embryo transfers, and on the
Yeah.
fourth or fifth one we actually transferred 2, so it's basically 2 embryos.
Hmm.
Um, you know, God willing, and for all our perseverance, we actually did get pregnant in November, so we got a big fat positive. But in between,
Fantastic.
I had an operation to deal with my adenomyosis and endometriosis. I
Yeah.
also had an operation to remove all of that. That was a 6-hour operation, so it's quite a long operation. I had that operation, and then we did the transfers because my doctor wanted to optimize my uterus for the implantation, and he thought
Yeah.
removing endometriosis and adenomyosis would obviously help. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's in a nutshell.
Wow. So how long, because okay, so you did 6 embryo, no, you did 4 retrievals. When did you start coaching? Between like straight
Actually,
away, or when did you go to look for a coach and then when did you decide to start?
so I started my own coaching right at the beginning when we knew we were going down the IVF journey. So maybe I think we'd done 1 cycle, one
Yeah.
stimulation cycle. And then when talking to her, I decided I'd left my job because I thought, it was a very stressful job, and I thought the stress
Yeah.
is not going to help with the treatment. So I left the job, and that's when I was seeking for something new to do. And then when I saw my own coach, and we talked about how I can help other other women, other couples going through this. We then talked about my own, me retraining to be a coach. So at the same time I was going through my treatment, I started my NLP course. So it was very, very tough because
Hmm.
it's very taxing and demanding course. You've got to be there from like, 8:30 to 7:30, and you're
Yeah.
coaching on, you're taking a lot of information in. But because I was so determined, I kind of, had to push through the pain barriers, and I was, there were times when I was rushing to hospital to get a scan or rushing to get an embryo transfer, and then
Yeah.
coming back all day. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how I did it, but I persevered and I pushed through, and I ended up doing my training while I was going through the treatment.
Do you think that going through the treatment made it something that made you more determined to get your coaching license?
Absolutely. And I think all of the tools and techniques that I learned from my training has absolutely helped me, no doubt, myself and my husband. So everything
Yeah.
I learned in terms of shifting your mindset, visualization techniques, reframing, how to move from different states, how to like understand your own body and being aware of your emotions and how it
Yeah.
triggers different parts of your body. All of those things that we learn really, really helped me manage my own emotions moving forwards, and kept me going. And, the perseverance and the resilience and all of that came from my own training.
Understand. Yeah. It's really interesting at the end of the day. Yeah. So okay. So now coming to the coaching part, what would somebody, or let's say a client of yours, what would they expect in a session? So
Okay,
let's say
so
somebody who just coming, yeah.
yeah, so I actually coach a number of different women at different stages in their journey. So they could be, so I've coached people that have not started the IVF journey yet, they're about to embark on it. So
Hmm.
the sessions would be more around how to help them kind of prepare for it mentally, emotionally, what to expect, how to deal with some of the triggers that they're having, or any anxieties or fears, and sort of working around that. So that's kind of an area that I would focus on and help that client with. If they're in the middle of the journey, then the sessions could be a little bit differently, because they may have experienced cycles that have failed or transfers that have failed, and there's a lot more kind of weight there and things to unpack in terms of emotions and fears. So yeah, so the sessions can vary depending on where you are in your journey. But what people can expect is a very safe, non-judgmental environment to talk to someone in. I make sure everyone who comes to me feels comfortable. Nothing is shared, obviously, outside of our coaching sessions.
Yeah.
And I also encourage people that come and speak to me, or for coaching, come to coaching for me, are also honest with themselves, and are open as they can be in our sessions, because only when you're open to your own feelings and how you are feeling can we
Yeah.
get you to a better place. um,
Yeah.
Also want to add, there's an element of commitment as well. So as much as your coach can help you move forward,
Yeah.
there's a side where you have to commit to some of the actions and some of the things that we talk about, because at the end of the day we can't control outside environmental issues, but what we can try and learn to master and control our own emotions and responses to those things that are thrown at us. And I kind of, in the IVF journey, you never know what's going to happen from one day to the next if you're in a
Yeah.
cycle, for. So it's about how to deal with and manage some of those uncertainties that are thrown at you. And my job as a coach is to equip you and to enable you so you can find your own resources and solutions to help yourself. So I don't have the answers and I don't fix your problems, but I can help you fix your own problems by uncovering some of the resources that you have within yourself. So we all have the strength within ourselves to deal with our own pain and problems, but you just need some help to uncover those resources to help you.
With these sessions, are they usually both couples, like, I mean, both husband and wife, or can it just be like
It
the
can vary.
lady?
So actually, during our own treatment, my husband and I had our own coach. So I always believe that coaches also.
Oh, okay.
So we had couple coaching, couple
Mm-hmm.
fertility, about 8 sessions. So we did it as a couple, and that was mainly to make sure that we were both on the same page. We understood where each other were in terms of the journey and how they felt about it, what the triggers were, where the emotions were. My husband had a real sense of guilt because we were dealing with a male infertility problem. So the
Yeah.
coaching helped him come to terms with some of that guilt. And then he obviously, with me talking about the fertility journey and with the male infertility, he then quickly understood that there wasn't any blame there. It was,
Yeah.
we were in together, it was a team, and we had to work together to get to the outcome, right? There's no way we're going to work against each other, because obviously then compromises the final outcome. So we had coach too. So coaches have coaches too. So yeah,
Interesting. Mm.
I think so. To answer your question, sorry, it can be an individual thing. So it can be one-on-one with the women, or it can be a couple sessions. So whatever the client needs, or whatever our coach needs, and I kind of work towards that. So it could be that you have some sessions on your own, and then some sessions you bring your partner along with you.
Okay. What would you say would probably be one of the biggest problems that you would say you face with most ladies coming to you?
I wouldn't say that it's a problem, but I think what I
Yeah.
would, some of the challenges, I guess, or
Yeah,
some of
yeah,
the areas
challenges, yeah.
that we talk about is what we've already addressed, which is the difference between counselling and coaching. And I do a lot of explaining up front in terms of what their expectations are, what they want to get out of the sessions, to make sure that the sessions are tailored around people's needs. So some of the challenges could be people aren't being as honest with themselves, and therefore they're not being as honest with me in terms of how they're really feeling about the journey, or support they need from their partner. Are they getting that support? How is this partner, if they're not getting the support, then how can we help the couple kind of work closely together? So those are some of the challenges, I guess. Yeah.
Interesting.
Around,
Okay, so
yeah.
yeah. In terms of these coaching sessions, what are the costs involved so that people just kind of know?
Yeah, so they can range. So coaching sessions can be anything from 1 hour to an hour and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and between 150 to 250 an hour or a session. Some coaches also do like packages where they'll say, okay, 6 coaching sessions can cost you X amount. Now, I don't actually offer a package because I don't like to get people to commit to 6 sessions, because it varies, right? Some people might need a few more. Some people might need 1 or 2, like sporadic sessions. A lot of people like to be coached when they're in the middle of a cycle, or they're just about to go into embryo transfer or egg collection, because you're heightened in terms of emotions and anxieties and fears. So I try to be quite flexible around the number of sessions, and not trying to commit people to like a package, like, because I don't
Yeah.
believe that sessions is for everyone. Some people might need more or
Yeah.
less. Yeah, I try and work around that.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So maybe now we can go to some of the questions that we've been asked.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So okay, somebody asked, what are the signs of not coping well?
Okay, that's a good question. I
Mm-hmm.
think this is obviously a very subjective to you as a person, understanding your own threshold in terms of your emotions and the balance. You know yourself when you feel balanced and when you feel off balance. So some of the signs could be, you're very emotional. So it could be physical signs where you're crying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you withdraw, so you don't want to do anything social, you don't want to see anyone, you don't want to hang out with anyone, you just kind of withdraw from a social setting. I'm a strong believer that the mind and body are one. So I believe if you are stressed but you don't often recognize it, it will manifest itself in your body. So for example, I went through a stage where everything got very stressful, and it manifested itself in my body in the terms of I started having a lot of tummy issues and gastric issues. And I know some of that was triggered by the hormones and the medicine I was taking, but I
Yeah.
think stress had a real impact on it and was making it 10 times worse. So
Yeah.
you might not often recognize it in terms of emotions, but if there's pain or somewhere else in your body and you're aware of that and you feel off
Yeah.
balance, that's a sign that you're not coping very well.
Interesting.
Or
Okay.
help, or there's
Yeah.
something that be tackled.
Yeah. Okay. Another question is, how do we keep the faith that we will eventually be able to conceive?
Okay, how do we keep the faith?
I think we've got lots of similar questions to that. How do you stay positive, or, how do you deal with negative emotions, things like that? Yeah. So it's a common question, I think.
It's a common question, and it's not something I can just answer in in a live session,
Yeah.
because this is exactly what I work on as a coach. So I work on helping people who have negative emotions or are losing faith, losing hope. And I need actually a couple of sessions to get them from A to B, right? So it's not so easy to go, okay, today you wake up and you're feeling negative and tomorrow you're going to be
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
As much as we'd like that to be the case, it's not. It's a transition. So as a coach, I would help you slowly get to that point, right? But I guess what you can think about is if you're losing faith and you had faith at one point in your life, right? Why did you choose to believe in that faith? How did that faith help you? Okay. And it's about remembering a time or a past memory where faith really helped you get through. Can it help you get through where you are right now? What are the small things you can do to help you get through where you are right now? Okay. So it's starting off small, taking a few steps at a time. So one example of something you can do, which I very much believe in, is setting intentions for yourself. So a daily intention. It could be as small as, okay, today I'm going to try and do one thing that makes me happy and that I will enjoy doing. You know, so it could be,
Yeah.
okay, today I'm going to go for a walk for an hour, listen to music. So it could be as
Yeah.
small as that. Just choosing
Yeah.
one thing. You set yourself the intention that I'm going to do this today because I know it's going to help me with X, or I know it's going to put me in a better place and it will serve me better. So you can start off with small steps like that.
Mm. Yeah, fantastic. I think so too. I think that the IVF journey is not an easy one, and it's, you don't know what to expect, and so I think it's something that you really need to figure out in terms of how to keep faith or keep positive at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why there are more and more coaches, serving people in this area, because there is such a big gap in terms of mental health and wellness. You know, like you
Yes.
have your doctors and they're there to get you pregnant. You have your
Yeah.
holistic practitioners that are there to also help you get pregnant. There's no one
Mm.
that gap to
In
ask you,
between.
okay, how are you feeling today? How are you doing? How is this journey having a toll on you? Is there
Yeah.
anything you're, what do you want to
Yeah.
talk about? And that's where the coach comes in, right? It's really to look after your mental well-being.
Absolutely. All right. Okay. Another question. How do you deal with negative emotions when you see or hear others announce their pregnancy?
Yeah, this is a tricky one, and it's something that comes up all the time. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, so even myself and all the tools and the techniques that I've got that I learned from my own coaching,
Yeah.
my NLP techniques, even I would be triggered sometimes with pregnancy announcements. Okay,
Yeah.
so and sometimes what I would do is I would actually take a break from social media, because a lot of those announcements are on social media, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes media can really help you if you find a community and a forum of ladies or couples that are going through it, and then you can really connect with them, right? So
Yeah.
I don't knock social media at all. I think there's a lot of positivity there, but I think
Hmm.
sometimes you're gorging on it a bit too much. The
Yeah.
pregnancy announcements will be there too, and they can really trigger you. So I sometimes would just take a break from social media, and just rebalance myself. I would also connect with other women that were going through IVF. So I've got a few friends that are going through it, and we'd meet up for coffee or for lunch, and that
Yeah.
really to talk to someone who's going through the same thing. They understand in a way they're going through. Everyone's journey is different and everyone's
Yeah.
feelings are different, but at least someone that is going through the journey as you are, and you can talk to them, you can feel comfortable, and there's an element of I understand where you're coming
Mm.
from.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say really try and find a network of, it doesn't have to be so many people. It could just be one or two people that you can talk to when you've
Yeah.
seen something that you can then go and talk to that person, because it's very likely that they would have also had that same response seeing other pregnancy announcements, so you've got someone to talk to.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that if someone hasn't gone through what you've gone through, they don't understand. And so, and it's hard for them to understand. So that's why we created a WhatsApp group as well for
Yeah,
ladies who are going through the same thing. And so we have a good bunch of ladies in there who basically talk about whatever they want to talk about, but it's a safe place and everybody's going through the same thing. So it's definitely a support base. And I think that's very important at the end of the day. Yeah.
stops you from feeling alone, because
Yeah.
a fertility journey can leave you feeling very alone and isolated and alienated if you don't find people that you can relate to. Because as you say, sometimes it's very hard for us to talk to our friends that haven't been through it, because it's
Yeah.
hard for them to know what we're going through, and we also feel frustrated. So it can
Yes.
lead to, you know, a lot of challenges. So just finding a couple of people that you can talk to, have a coffee with, you know, offload.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think it,
For sure. I mean, as much as you can talk to, let's say, your spouse or anything about it, it's still nice to have a bunch of ladies who are going through the same thing, because they will truly understand. Yeah.
yeah, and you just
Yeah.
feel like strong connection already because you've gone through so much, or you're going through so much.
Yeah, exactly. A safe place. All right. Okay. Let's see. Uh, how do you cope with gossip at the workplace when you're away for IVF?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
thing, it is quite tough, but again, it's up to the individual. Like a lot of individuals are quite open about their journey. So as soon as we started our IVF treatment, I was very open because I
Mm.
wanted to encourage other people to be open. And through my openness and honesty, I had friends coming out the woodwork saying, you know what, I haven't told you, but I was going through IUI, and that's, you know, I was having my own fertility challenges, or
Yeah.
I suffered from X, Y, and Z. So people were coming to me with their own fertility challenges because I was quite open and honest about it. So if you are happy to be open and honest about it, then you should speak to your colleagues, and you don't have to tell them everything, but you can just give
Yeah.
them a gist. I'm going through some challenges at the moment, and that's why I'm spending a lot of time away from work. I'd really value
Yeah.
if you could respect that, respect my privacy, and try not to talk about what I'm going through because it's very tough for me at the moment. Um,
Absolutely.
Leave it at that. You don't even
Yeah.
have to tell what you're going through, but you just
Yeah.
have to get their understanding, so that they are empathetic towards your situation.
Yeah. But I think that, I mean, I think it's also a very touchy thing where, I mean, we've heard some of horror stories where they have told their bosses and their colleagues and it didn't end up well as well. So I think
Yeah,
it really depends how supportive your
that's
workplace
right.
is at the end
You
of the
have to,
day. Yeah.
yeah, you have to understand. Okay, are you close to these colleagues? Um,
Yeah.
does it? Firstly, do you even care? Like, if they're talking about you, are
Yeah.
you that affected? If you are, then there is ways to tackle it without telling them outright what your problem is. You could just say you're going through some challenges. You just appreciate it if they gave you some time and space and empathize with your situation without giving too much away.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. Okay, let's see. Any advice on calming the mind and not blaming yourself for infertility or bad outcomes of the treatments?
Yeah, I mean, this is tough because you do end up being quite hard on yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and you do sometimes, your mind is just on overdrive.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah. You don't know what's going on.
trying to, it's just like you've got a million and one things going in your head. So
Yeah.
a couple of techniques here. So what I started doing, and what I've also told a lot of my clients to do, is, I know people talk about journaling, but this is not journaling. I call it a brain dump or a mind dump. Okay,
Okay.
so just before you go to bed or the minute you wake up in the morning, if there's anything that's whizzing around in your head, just write it down. Just write it down. If you're visual, you can draw it out. Some people like to draw out their emotions or their feelings, but just write. If it's a bunch of words, just write it all down, okay? And that just offloads it from your brain onto a piece of paper, and it no longer occupies the space that you know it's occupying, and you've just got it down on paper, and you can. It's not, you're not going to immediately not think about it, but at least you've
Yeah.
offloaded it. And then also in terms of trying to calm your mind, there's a lot of tools and techniques. So I know meditation isn't for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to calming music isn't for everyone, but there are some great apps out there like Calm or Headspace that can help you calm your mind if you just listen to
Okay.
some music for half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Going for a walk can sometimes help you kind of rebalance and kind of charge. A lot of people like doing yoga as well, so there's a lot
Yeah.
of yoga specialists out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sound healing. There's just so many things that you can
Yeah.
do, or something that you enjoy doing. So it might just be reading, going out with a friend for a coffee, going out for, with some friends for a drink. So you
Yeah.
have to find what works for you to help you calm your minds, because there's a lot of tools out there, but not,
Hmm.
one size doesn't fit all. So you have to find
Yeah.
the thing that works for you.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think that what you said about writing down the bad stuff and everything, or whatever's on your mind, I think that's quite useful, because if not, it's just going to be niggling in your brain the whole day. And so, yeah, it's good to get it off. Yeah.
Yeah. Another technique, and I obviously need time with clients to work on this, but I also ask them, we do like a visualization exercise where I ask them to think about a past memory where they were feeling calm and grounded. And it could be on the beach, it could be in the forest. And, there's a
Yeah.
lot of different things that evoke calmness from a past memory, if you really
Yeah.
think about it. So I take them back to that memory.
Hmm.
I ask, control their breathing, really take them back to that memory. But it's not just about thinking about the memory, it's how did your body feel when you were calm. So it's about
Yeah.
bringing awareness to them around how does the body feel when it's relaxed, like the breathing slows down, the shoulders are relaxed, all those different things
Yeah.
help with your mind, because your mind and body are connected. So
Yeah.
that visualization is really powerful, because I use it myself. So when I feel, a state of anxiety is coming up, I take myself back to that calm place, and I really sit down and concentrate and focus hard on being back there again. And it's straight away I notice my shoulders start to relax, my breathing starts calming down. These are all the
Yeah.
things that you can do to help.
Interesting. All right. Okay. All right. So, okay. Another question that we have is, okay, I think this is a big one. How do you cope when your spouse blames you or your job for causing all the stress when it's not actually the problem? I think, or okay, maybe let's rephrase it. How would you basically, I mean, if you and your spouse are probably not in the same,
Right. And on the,
headspace kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, this is a tricky one. So
Yeah.
um, I would say go get coaching. But if you're
Have
not,
you have you ever had any couples come to you and not both of them not be in the same, headspace?
yes, and when they come to the coaching sessions, and I talk to an individual, there's certain questions I ask that in like either the woman and then the man, and then we
Yeah.
try and what it is, it's about eliciting the feelings and the emotions, and sometimes as a couple you just have assumptions that the other person's thinking or feeling like this, or you make assumptions about their behavior. So you
Yeah.
say, okay, he did this, which means this, and we always make
Mm, mm,
assumptions about
mm, mm. Yeah.
what their intention was. So their intention might have been, I did this to help you. So it's about talking about some of those scenarios, being upfront and honest, and saying, okay, when you do X, it makes me feel like this. Once they recognize that this behavior that they're doing, or this reaction that they had, has triggered their partner, but it's been, it's not an intentional thing. They start to open up more and more about their feelings and their honesty with each other. So when we,
Mm.
we had our own coaching session as a couple, we then decided that, there'll be days where all we talk about or think about was this fertility journey, and it can drive you
Yeah.
crazy. We said, okay,
Absolutely. Yeah.
where we're not so obsessed with it, and we're doing something completely different. So we would
Yeah.
just, as hard as it was, we would go and do something different. Luckily we were able to travel at that time, so we would go and do some travel. You can't do
Hmm.
that now. It's about
No, unfortunately.
going coffee and not talking about fertility, like talking about something different. um
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do, which is really, really helpful to understand other person's perspective, because often we just have our own perspective and we forget that our partner's got their own perspective too. What we did,
Absolutely.
we drew out, what really helped is through the whole IVF journey, there's different emotions that get triggered at different points. And what my husband and I both did, we drew out our IVF journey on a piece of paper. So we drew it
Okay.
out, finish, like very visually, and then we got a different colored pen and we wrote down the emotions along each of those points. So we said, okay, cycle one, and then we wrote the emotions across, and we shared it and we talked about it, and that was really nice, because then we both realized actually we both had similar emotions during the journey, but some of
Hmm.
them heightened, or he wasn't maybe being as honest as he should be around how he was feeling. But having that
Yeah.
drawing and each other's drawing really helped us understand that we're both in this together, and we both have feelings that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And then open communication, right? Trying to be as open and honest as you can with each other.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of the
About it.
time, because it's harder on the woman going through infertility, but people don't realize that the men go through it as well. Yeah, and they probably think that all the emotions are on the woman. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's why I like to focus not only on women but couples too, because guys are going through it too, and for
Yeah.
them, it can be really hard watching their partner go through the physical aspects, so the injections and the feeling terrible. You know, that really, really affects them, but they don't always talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. All right. Okay, we've got one more question here. Okay, this one. How do you cope with the financial matter of IVF? Let's say if you were to go somewhere private without subsidies from the government. Don't know. Yeah, but how would, let's say if somebody comes to you and their stress is basically financial.
Yeah, that is a tricky one because
Mm.
unfortunately, if you're struggling financially, then you have to think about other avenues of, you know, can is there family support that can support you?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you own a property, can you remortgage? I mean, I don't quite know how the remortgaging situation
Yeah,
works here.
it's a bit
About,
different. Yeah.
about what your limits are, but I think you go into the IVF journey not understanding just how financially crippling it can be. Okay,
Yeah.
and some may have a limit, but just don't realize that they should cap how much they, maybe you want to cap how much you want to spend, and then
Yeah.
you want to really sit down and decide, okay, do we want to continue, or do we want to look at other avenues? Because my husband and I just were very naive about the whole financial situation, and before
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
knew, plowing so much money into it, and we were like, wow, we've spent
Yeah. You
a
don't realize how much you spend until at
realize,
the end. Yeah.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, I mean, and there are times where our family have been amazing, and they would call and say, "Look, if you need any financial help, we're here. We can help support you." So, I think it's about looking at the avenues that you've got for financial support. So, if you can't financially support like 2, 3 cycles, maybe you can support one or two because obviously they're very
Yeah.
expensive. Have we
Yeah.
got anyone close to us, like mums, dads, or family that would help maybe pay for another cycle? And then you
Yeah.
kind of get to the end of that, you can then think about what other avenues are there accessible to you to help you financially.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's not easy. That's the thing. And I think especially here in Singapore, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
And I think financial is probably one of the biggest problems that a lot of people have in their mind because you don't realize how expensive it can be until they tell you, and then
Oh,
it's kind of a shocker, and then you've got to decide, and it's not guaranteed. That's the thing. You know, if
that's
they
a,
tell you you're going to come out with a baby for that amount of money that you spend, then okay, but there's no guarantee, and that's the scary part.
yeah. I think the other thing to add here is be your own
Mm.
advocate as well. So sometimes IVF doctors that their focus is to get you pregnant, and they're very passionate about that, and they will do whatever it takes. So
Yeah,
sometimes they just don't understand that the financial side of it is really tough for some couples.
yeah,
So there were instances where our IVF doctor, just because he was so focused on getting us pregnant, would suggest some treatment that was actually twice as expensive and may not guarantee the outcome that you wanted. So we would say, well, hang on a minute, we don't really want to spend like 20, 30 grand on this if there's another alternative.
yeah,
Um, again, like you said, you can't guarantee which way it's going to go. So we were very vocal, where there were points where we felt like we were being recommended something that was very pricey for what it was, but there was a cheaper alternative. We were very vocal about it. Like, can we try this first? Um, uh, if there were add-ons to treatments that we didn't really need, we were like, no, can we pull back here, because we don't have
yeah,
an infinite pot of money that we can just spend. And sometimes
yeah,
I forget or just don't realize that you don't have this bottomless pit of money to use. You've got a finite, because there's a cap on how much you have.
yeah, exactly. So, okay, in terms of your coaching, people that come to you, is it only for fertility issues?
So I also do life coaching too. So I'm a qualified life coach, but I
Hmm.
really wanted to fertility coaching. So at the moment I do a bit of both, but my focus is fertility coaching.
And the coaching, is it through face to face or Zoom, or what methods
Yeah,
are
so
they?
I've done a lot of life coaching via Zoom, and that's international. I've got international clients from like Hong Kong, Australia, London. So that's obviously via Zoom. And then clients that I have in Singapore, some of them prefer face to face. So I do a lot of face to face. I prefer face to face because I can
Yeah,
understand
you can feel,
more.
and yeah, it's
Yeah,
different. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. But where they can't make certain sessions, and we can do a Zoom.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Or is there any other questions that anybody has? Okay, let me just miracle.rainbow. Just PM us and then we'll send you the link to join the WhatsApp group. But yeah, if anybody has any other questions, or Tina, have you got anything else that you'd like to add, advice or anything you want to give anybody so that, what anything that you'd like to.
I think one bit of advice is if you are starting your IVF journey, is do as much research or talk to as many people as you can about what to expect and what's upcoming in terms of the emotional, physical energy it takes to get through the journey. Okay.
Yeah.
So my husband and I weren't very well equipped in that space because we were very naive. We
Yeah.
didn't know. No one was telling us anything different because obviously the doctors, they're not qualified or trained to help you from a mental, emotional perspective.
Yeah.
So it's about talking to the right people to get you at least prepared for some of what's to come. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can never prepare
absolutely.
in it, but you can at least mentally map out, okay, these are the things that happen and these are the things that can go wrong. Because not knowing that, just going into it blind, you almost feel like you've been slapped in the face, as soon as something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I think having gone through, when you go through, let's say, the first step of IUIs and everything, you kind of think that it's going to succeed. And then you go through it and then you realize, no, it's not going to succeed. And then you think, okay, IVF is going to succeed. But you don't realize the whole process of IVF, there's so many things and so many problems you can face that mentally it's torture, Yeah.
It's they call it reproductive trauma. That's what a lot of people call it because it is trauma.
Reproductive.
Just don't
Yeah.
know what's going to go wrong, and you might think, okay, once we've got all these embryos, we just transfer. It doesn't even work. It's not even that simple. Like for me, we couldn't get our lining ready for so long, and I was doing mini IVF stimulations to get the lining ready, and I'd done 4 of
Yeah.
those before we could. So there's so many things that anything out of kilter is
Yeah.
like a big boulder in the middle of your road, and you just go off
Would
track
you
because you just built
would you
it.
say that having gone through it a few times, it got easier, or do you think it got harder?
I think you learn to manage your emotions better. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it ever gets easier. If anything, it gets harder. But you learn your tools and techniques to make you more resilient.
Yeah.
And you learn to manage your emotions a lot better, and you learn to communicate as a couple a lot better as well. So
Yeah.
if you do have open communication, I actually think it makes your relationship stronger because
I think that's
you've got
it. Yeah.
together that you end up building a really good team together.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, we've got one more question. How do we support our husbands in this journey? Most resources talked about how husbands are supposed to support wives, but not the other way around.
How do we
I mean,
support a husband
I think
journey?
it's fantastic that you want to support your husband, but yeah, so would you have any tips or advice on how we can do that?
Yeah, so it's a bit about what I talked about earlier, where you
Yeah.
share, like you can almost draw your journey together and share your emotions, and talk to each other about their emotions, but also looking at things from a different perspective. So seeing things from his perspective and trying really hard to see things from his perspective. So even though you're going through the physical pain and the injections, he's feeling it too because he's seeing you in that situation.
Yeah,
So it's about,
exactly.
okay, I'm feeling a bit worried about our transfer tomorrow. Babe, how are you feeling? What's going through your mind? Like even now to this point, I asked my husband, okay, so I'm feeling a bit anxious about our upcoming, our birth or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
How are you? Like what's going through your mind? What are your fears? Is there anything that I can help you with? So it's about asking the right questions. Like even if it's as simple as how are you feeling? What are
Yeah.
your fears?
Yeah.
What are you worried about?
Yeah. So it's just communication at the end of the day.
Questions about It's asking questions about them and their feelings and their emotions and what's um triggering them, right?
Yeah. All right. We've got one from Kate. What advice would you have for those who find the medical language very overwhelming?
Yeah, there is a lot of medical jargon, and it can get quite tricky. So what we
Google
would do,
becomes your best friend.
Google does, but Google is also can put you off and
Yes,
put you on
absolutely.
path.
Yeah.
Um, it would when you so what I used to do, because it did get a bit overwhelming, is before I'd have appointments with my doctor, I
Yeah.
would write questions so that I wouldn't forget it when I'm there. Because when you're there, it's like information overload. Oh my God,
Yes.
what is it about? So I would actually type them out, because I was very like organized. Type them out and email those
Mhm.
questions to the doctor beforehand. I'd get there with my like sheet of questions, and I would go through each question one by one. And
Mm.
doctors are busy, but I was adamant, because I'm paying a lot of money. I need to understand what's going on, and I need to understand
Yeah.
what all of these. So
Yeah.
I would go through the question, and I'd do that every time, and that meant that I didn't miss anything or forget anything, and I really understood what was going on.
No, I think that's wonderful advice. The number of times I've been to my doctor and come out and tell my husband, "Oh shit, I forgot to ask something."
Yeah,
So I think, yeah, because you're not thinking, he's telling you
you're not.
something and you're trying to, yeah, exactly. And so, no, I think that's good. I should start doing that as well.
Yeah. Or even if
Yeah.
it's not you, you write it out, and your husband can be the person to ask the question, because you do feel very overwhelmed with everything that they're throwing at you.
Yeah.
You're having a scan, you're having a check, then you're having this medication, and they're telling you how to take the medication, and when to take it, and that's what
Yeah.
you're focused. So maybe then the responsibility lies with your husband. You say, babe, can you ask these questions while I
Yeah.
focus on what I'm taking and when and how much? You can ask the questions that we've both thought about. So the questions aren't just from you; they're from both of you, right? So sit down and say, okay,
Yeah.
what do we want to ask this
Yeah.
session? What are the things that are worrying us? What do we not understand? Whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important because I remember going into our first few IVF sessions, and I only had questions that I prepared for the doctor, in my mind. But
Yeah,
and then when it came to the doctor asking my husband, "Do you have any questions?" I was like, "Nah, he doesn't have anything." And he goes, "No, no, no, I do. I have a lot of questions."
I
And
have
he
a
had more.
hundred.
He had more questions than me. And so I didn't realize till then that. Okay, he has as many things in his mind that I do as well. Yeah.
And I think when people talk about how to support your husband or how to have better communication, just putting a list of questions down together that you have is
Yeah.
something that you're working on together, and that in itself will help, because you're asking his opinion around what's he thinking, what are the things that he wants to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. I think that is it. There's no more questions. Thank you so much, Tina, for the session.
Fun as well that joined us. It's been great having you.
Fantastic. And I think that you've definitely answered a lot of questions. And I'm hoping that more people will contact you so that
Me.
they can go through the coaching and this and that. Hold on, darling.
Oh,
Hold
very
on.
much.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
No worries. Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
You know, I'm post